Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and today's video. In this one I'm going to be testing out and reviewing some of ARTEZA's watercolour products to see what they're like and help you decide whether or not they are worth considering if you're looking to buy new supplies. So I hope you enjoy the video. ARTEZA reached out to me a couple of months ago and asked me if I would be interested in doing this review, and I was only too happy to oblige as I love trying out new art supplies. But whilst I did get sent these products for free, this video is not sponsored, so I'm not getting paid to say anything either way, and will be giving you my honest opinion on the items I received. If you do like the look of any of the products mentioned today and wish to purchase some, I do have a 10% discount code for you, which is valid up until the 10th of December, and I'll put all the info for that below in the description box, along with the links to all the products I've used today. These are affiliate links, which doesn't affect the price you pay, but means I'll get a small commission which I can reinvest in more art supplies for future videos here on my channel. Also, just to let you know, ARTEZA is going to be having a big Black Friday deal, and all you need to do to take advantage of that is to leave your email on their website, and they will send you a coupon for a pretty hefty discount, so it's definitely worth doing if you fancy trying out any of these products or even something new. Now, with all that said, let's take a closer look at these products in turn, and then I'll be using them to paint a couple of paintings later on in the video to go through the pros and cons of the supplies and show you how they perform. So first up is the 24 set of premium watercolour paints in tubes, and these 12mm tubes come in a smart black box with all the information about the light fastness, transparency and pigment numbers on the back, along with ARTEZA's guarantee. On their website, this set costs you just £14.98 if you're in the UK or $20.99 if you're in the US. Each metal tube has a coloured band around the top giving you the colour name and number, as well as its light fastness rating, denoted by the plus symbols, transparency, denoted by the square, and pigments included, which is the P numbers. And I'll be swatching them out and talking about all of that in just a bit. The next item I received is this 2-pack of A4 Expert watercolour paper. Each cold press pad contains 32 sheets of dual-sided acid-free paper, so there is a smooth side and a textured side, which is a really neat idea, and the paper weight is £140 or 300 grams, so it should be able to cope well with whatever watercolour techniques you throw at it. The only downside for me is that it's not cotton, but the price reflects this. For both pads you'll pay just $23.99 in the UK, and in the US the 9x12 inch equivalent is priced at $26.99. Next we have another 2-pack, this time of watercolour sketchbooks, and I'm really excited by these as I love a watercolour sketchbook, and this one looks really smart with its natural linen bound hardback cover and elastic strap to keep it all together. Each of these A4 size books has 64 pages of 110 cold press paper, again not cotton, but like the pads is dual sided and acid free. Inside you'll find a handy ribbon page marker, and in the back there's also an expandable plastic inner pocket, which you can use to store photos or reference images in. The paper in this pad is quite lightweight, so it'll be interesting to see how it holds up to the watercolour painting, but on the face of it, it looks smart and costs £28.99 in the UK or $28.99 in the US. The last thing in the parcel was a set of 15 miniature detail brushes, which I was so happy about because I was actually thinking of ordering some more small brushes, and this looks like a really good selection. It contains 5 liners, 5 spot brushes and 5 round brushes in 4 different sizes: 40, 30, 20, 0 and 1. They're synthetic brushes and in the UK cost £11.89 or $13.99 in the US. The brush handle contains the brand name on it, along with the brush size and type printed in silver. I like the way they feel in your hand and think they look really well made. Okay, so now it's time to give this lot a try. I decided to squeeze out some of each of the watercolours into a cheap 24mm palette I bought, before swatching them out, both for convenience today and also to see how the paint re-wet once dry. I also drew up a swatch chart to see how these watercolours laid down and to use for future reference. I included a black line drawn with permanent marker to test out the opacity for myself as well. My first impressions of these watercolours was how bright and vibrant they are and how smoothly they lay down on the paper, which is a sheet from the watercolour pad I showed you, by the way. There also seems to be a nice range of colours, but until you actually go and try them out in a painting, it's hard to know what, if any, you're missing. But there are certainly enough colours in this 24 set to mix your own if you want or need to. I was especially pleased to see not one but two purples included though, as purple can be a tricky colour to mix. So we have a violet and a lilac, which I use for painting in shadows and mixing with black in my animal portraits. There is also a black and a white in this set, which are sometimes not used by watercolour artists, but personally I think they both come in handy. And if you want to put them into a palette like I have, you always have the option to leave them out. So I don't really see that as a problem. What might be a problem though is the fact that you can't buy individual tubes open stock. So if you were to use up and want to replace one colour, you'd have to buy the whole set again, or the smaller 12 set depending on what colour you want to replace. But I did find that the watercolours were really richly pigmented and a little goes a long way. Once the paint swatches were dry, I went back to write in each of the different properties on my chart. And as you can see here, the colours had very little colour shift when dry, so maintain their vibrancy without the chalky appearance you sometimes see in more affordable or student grade paints. So far so good. When we look at the light fastness ratings, the results are also quite impressive, with 22 out of the 24 paints having the best 3+ rating. The two colours that fall just under that with a 2+ rating being Vermilion Red and Orange Yellow. In the next column on my chart, I recorded the transparency or opacity of the watercolours. This is indicated by a square, as you find with many watercolours. A filled-in square indicates that the paint is opaque, an empty square shows that it's transparent, and a half filled-in square is for the semi-transparent colours. In this set, only ultramarine blue is classed as transparent, whilst 15 out of the 24 are semi-transparent and the remaining 8 are opaque. Now, if like me you love transparency in your watercolours and enjoy building up your painting in layers, these figures might put you off. And to be honest, I have heard other artists liken ARTEZA's watercolours more to gouache. But whilst these paints come out of the tube quite thick, I found that when you dilute them with water they become less opaque, and I'll show you the results in the demonstration to follow. The last column on my chart is for the pigment numbers, which may or may not interest you, but can be really useful to help with colour mixing and so on, and it's something I've been getting more into as time goes on. In this set, 11 out of the 24 colours are single pigment colours, which can make for easier colour mixing and less muddy puddles, which can occur when paint colours have too many and or low quality pigments in them. One thing that did puzzle me a bit though was why there was titanium white or PW6 in several of the blues and the lilac. Maybe it's to bulk out more expensive pigments, I'm not sure, but it seems a shame since being opaque affects the transparency of the colour it's mixed with. So if you know the answer to that one, please comment below. Now finally, it's time to put these supplies to the test in a couple of demonstrations. For this one, I cut pieces of the A4 paper from the pad in half and painted first on the rough side, which is on the left hand side, and the smooth side, which is on the right hand side. I painted the same leaf on both pieces of paper so I could compare them side by side and try out a few of my favourite watercolour techniques, beginning with the wet in wet technique. So I pre-wet an area of the leaf first with water before dropping in paint. The paper seemed to cope with this fine and the paints mixed nicely on the surface of the paper. One thing I did notice that was a bit different to the Schmincke watercolours I usually use though is that there was less dispersion of the paint into the water. So it kind of stayed where it was rather than bleeding out as I'm used to. But that might be preferable to some people and can be good for beginners too, as it makes things easier to control and is a bit more predictable. I did exactly the same on the smoother surface, and despite all of the colours I used being semi-transparent, I was really pleased with how luminous and bright this first layer turned out. I was also impressed that both surfaces were equally enjoyable to work on, neither buckling nor bobbling with this wet on wet layer. For the leaf stems, I used one of the detail brushes, a size 30 round, and oh my goodness, this was so nice to use. It has a firm but flexible brush tip and made fine lines so much easier, so I'm really impressed with this. Then before I could finish painting the leaves, I got called away from my desk and it was the next day before I could pick up where I left off. In this time though, the paints had dried on my palette and I thought I'd show you how they dried. Most of them were fine, just a few had cracked, but no major problems, and I simply sprayed them with water before painting the second layer. I did notice though that some of the used paint I'd mixed on the palette did need a bit of extra mixing to evenly reactivate it, but after that it was fine. So the next thing I wanted to try on this paper was layering, and for this I re-wet the paper again before adding more concentrated paint, and it worked really well, and I loved how fresh and bright these paints were, so no concerns at all with opacity. In fact, I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed the whole process, and if anything, how luminous the paint was turning out. Sometimes semi-opaque and opaque paints are less fugitive and are easier to control during wet in wet application because they're heavier, so this could be a good set for beginners or more practiced artists alike. So the last technique I wanted to try on this paper was the wet on dry, so I finished off by adding more concentrated watercolour to paint in the tips of the leaves and the veins. In conclusion, I was really impressed with both the watercolour paints and the paper, with both the rough and the smooth sides performing equally well. I think I might even prefer the right hand side painting done on the smoother surface, but let me know what you think in the comments below. So now to test this watercolour sketchbook, and for this I've ended up doing a smaller piece or else we'd be here all night. I've done an outline in pencil and taped around it with washi tape for a nice clean edge, and I'm going to use the area on the right hand side to swatch out my colours. I'm painting a little mouse and some vegetables, which is from a reference photo on Pixabay, and I filled in the eye first with a waterproof black fine liner. I started as I had on the watercolour pad with the wet in wet technique, so pre-wetting the paper before adding paint. Straight away though, I noticed a difference between the pad and this sketchbook, as the paper felt a lot less able to cope with much water, but then it is only £110 compared with the £300 pad, so what did I expect? I did still manage to layer my paints though and lift out some highlights too, but I was more conscious of not adding too much water for fear that the paper would buckle or tear. I decided to use the wet on dry method to paint the other vegetables, and this helped me to worry less and enjoy more. But I was a bit disappointed as I really like using the wet in wet technique and wished that the sketchbook had the same weight paper as the pad. This isn't anything especially new though, as I've come to the same conclusion in my other watercolour sketchbook if you've seen any of my previous videos, and I'm always careful not to add too much water. For the little mouse, I went back to the same size 30 round brush and took advantage of the firm point to paint in the fur detail before then painting the darkest areas of the corn in the foreground. And for those smallest details, this brush was brilliant. It offered control and precision and made this painting so much fun. I mixed my own grey here using ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, as there's no Payne's grey in this 24 set of paints. But sometimes I think that mixing your own colours can look less flat and more interesting anyway. I did miss not having sepia or neutral tint though, but again ended up mixing my own version of these colours using what I had. And despite initial reservations about the resilience of this sketchbook paper, I really loved the detail I could get working more wet on dry, and had no problems building up layers on the corn here to get a real sense of depth and realism. And whilst I didn't want to add too much water to this paper, I did find that I could apply paint to dry paper and easily soften any edges out with a damp brush. And you can see how this really helped to add some nice detail to the dark green vegetable on the left hand side here. I used the same sort of technique for the second green vegetable, leaving some hard edges as well, as this vegetable had quite a textured surface to it. And some much lighter spots, which gave me an idea to try the white paint over the top. I used the white that had dried on my palette for this, so the effect was a bit watered down, but I think if I'd have used it straight from the tube, this white watercolour could make an excellent alternative to white gouache for adding highlights to your paintings. One word of caution for the sketchbook before I forget though is to be very careful removing washi tape or mask from your paper when you're finished, as it can tear. I get around this by applying heat from a hairdryer, but I was really happy with how my paintings turned out today. So that's pretty much it. I really enjoyed testing out these supplies and was really impressed with their quality and performance, and I'd like to thank ARTEZA for sending them to me to try out. I love the whole ethos of ARTEZA's brand and definitely agree that whilst these products are affordable, they are not lacking in quality. So go along with the aim of making good quality art supplies accessible to everyone with every budget. Their customer service is also excellent, and they guarantee that if your product does not perform properly, they will replace it, so I wouldn't have any qualms about ordering from them in the future, and have already got my eyes on a few new products I'd like to buy myself. Don't forget, if you've seen anything that has sparked your interest today, then there will be affiliate links below that will take you to the product whether you're here in the UK or in the US. And until December 10th, you will also get a 10% discount using the discount code TheArtHive as well, so why not treat yourself? Look out for their Black Friday deal as well, because as I mentioned before, there will be some hefty discounts to be had, so head over there and give them your email so they can send you a coupon code for that. I hope you enjoyed the video today. It's quite a long one, but there was a lot to fit in. So give it a thumbs up if you did, comment below, and subscribe to my channel for more arty content. Next week's video will be on Thursday again, but if you make sure you've turned on the bell notifications, you'll be notified as soon as I upload. Thank you all so much for watching, have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, bye.